There we go. All right. So, I've got my sacrifickle in there, and you can see nothing's coming out, right? The way I've jammed that in. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and I'm making some pickles. It's coming towards the end of pickle making season, and you know, I generally make about 7 gallons of pickles in the summer, and that I don't need to buy pickles during the year. That's enough, right? It's basically a half gallon jar. That's what this is, half-gallon jar, and I like to use this type of jar to make them. Gives me a half-gallon jar per month and a couple extra, right? So that's the right amount for whatever you're gonna use it with, and you got that nice pickling juice as well. And when I say pickles, I'm talking about lacto-fermented pickles, right? You put them in a brine, you leave them on the counter for a week, and then you stick them in the fridge, and then you stick them somewhere cool, and they just stay like that. So I've done lots of videos on that, but I thought I'd just talk about it today, because one thing I find really annoying about a lot of videos on this topic is a preference for different techniques for, once you've jammed all the pickles in the bottle, you're supposed to find some way to keep the pickles down below the surface of the water. And so there's things you can buy. You can buy these glass discs that fit nicely into a mason jar. Waste of money. You can go to a beach and find a nice rock like this, stick it on top. Waste of time. All right, because your pickle is all you need. What you need, the simplest way to keep everything below the surface is to create what one of my viewers referenced as a sacrifickle. A pickle that goes on top and is wedged in there in such a way that it holds everything down by virtue of its shape and the way it fits into the neck of the jar. So I'm gonna pack this jar full of pickles, talk through my process, and I'm gonna put a sacrifickle on the top to show you exactly what I'm talking about, all right? So, here we go. Got some nice big fat garlic from my garden. When I make a half-gallon of pickles, I use 3 cloves of garlic. All right. So if I was preparing these for a meal, I'd smash them like this. But when I'm making pickles, I actually just cut them in half like that and take the skins off. All right, so that's a bit of a, you can break them up a little bit, helps the skin come off. Just slightest bit of weight on there. The skin can pop off a little bit easier. All right, so we'll just do that. See what a difference that, see how the skin's just popping off in general, right? Remember, I cut the bottom off, the root part of the garlic to facilitate this. We got them all? I think we got them all there, okay. Okay, so move that off to the side. All right, now we got our jar. So here's the way I like to do it. The recipe is very simple. It's just dill, and the dill is what's the star of the show. The dill is what makes your pickle a dill pickle. All right, now put the dill in first. Then we put I've got grape leaves. I got grapes in my garden. These have all been washed. Grape leaves. That'll keep a lot of the dill has, pollen and seeds and stuff like that. And you put those on top, it sort of keeps all that dill stuff from floating up to the top. Not 100%, but for the most part. Then we put our garlic on top of the grape leaves. Why do we add grape leaves? Because when you add grape leaves, there's different ways to do this, but this is what I've got. Grape leaves keep the pickles crunchy. That's what there's a chemical in the grape leaves that is just miraculous in its ability to keep the pickles crunchy. So I grow grapes in my garden. I get enough grapes. I don't get enough grapes to make wine or anything meaningful out of them. They're not sweet grapes in particular. I make a kind of a grape jelly jam type thing out of them. But the main reason I grow the grapes is so I got the grape leaves for making pickles. All right, so we got our garlic, our pickles, and our dill, and now we got to get our pickles in there. So now I've got these pickles. I just picked them from the garden. My pickle plants are just about done, and you know, you can't just use any cucumber. Pickling cucumber will give you better pickles, okay? Most pickles have these sort of prickly surface. I have done videos where I wiped all the prickles off, but I have found through experience you don't need to do that. These little prickles that are on the side of the pickle, they just fall apart in that solution there. What's going to happen in this solution here, we're going to put the pickles in, we're going to put some salt water in, and there's enzymes in this vegetable that in that environment create an acidic environment and make the pickles taste delicious. But the acidity simultaneously removes all the pickles, or removes all the prickles from the pickle and makes this as smooth, you know, as smooth as you want, right? So, but a key thing is that you have to cut off the blossom end. So if you have a pickle, there's the end where it was attached to the plant and the end where the flower was. If you leave the blossom end on, it can create problems. It can make your pickles mushy. It can make them no good. So you got to cut off the blossom end. Now, my mentality is you don't want to get it wrong. So I cut off both ends, right? That's just a more robust, to me, a more robust approach. So I like to take the larger pickles to start. First row of pickles in a jar. I mean, this is, you're fitting the pickles to the jar. Okay, so I like to take the larger ones. Start with them. Now I've got this, the pickles soaking in this bowl of water here. The main reason for that, and I put a little bit of salt in here too, is to dislodge, remove, disenfranchise any slugs or other insects that are hanging around. Because if you put insects in your jar, that can, it's not always good. Let's just put it that way, all right? All right, let's say maybe that's enough. I don't know if it's enough, but let's give it a try. Okay, so now the art of this is getting these babies in the jar in a way that makes the best use of the space. All right, so this is an art that, you know, you get better at with time. I would say it's probably one of those arts that requires a lifelong focus. All right, and I'm still working on it, but yeah, the more pickles you can fit into this jar, the more able you are to, you know, just see how they could possibly fit in, the better. You can be, you know, you can be assertive with the pickles, but if you're too assertive, you damage their anatomy, and you know that's not necessarily good. So now I'm getting to a point here where I'm trying to make the best use of the space I got left. So now I'm pretty close. See, I've just about, I'm probably 3/4 of an inch from the neck of the jar. All right. So for me, this is the point where I want to construct a sacrifickle. So I got a perfect pickle for this weird looking one here. So you want a pickle that's longer than the opening of the jar, like this one, okay? Doesn't matter what shape it is, it's got to be longer than the mouth of the jar, okay? And you're going to cut it lengthwise, and you may even want to cut it a little bit thin. right, so this one's kind of fat. I'm going to just thin it out a little bit. All right, now the trick is to just jam it in so that it's below the neck. All right, so like that. Yep, here we go. There we go. All right. So, I've got my sacrifickle in there, and you can see nothing's coming out, right? The way I've jammed that in, right? Buoyancy that results from me putting the brine solution in here is not going to make anything float up above the neck. It's going to hold it all down. See? Just by cutting it to that shape. All right? These are going to be a nice little snack. All right, so I mean, that's the great thing about this. You just adjust the shape of the pickle to serve the purpose. I probably got enough of these left to make another batch. I'll do that off camera. Okay, so now we've got our sacrifickles in there, holding everything down. We got all our key ingredients here, and all that's left to do is to put our water in. For this half-gallon pickling jar, I've got 3 cups of water and 3 tablespoons of salt. I find that works the best. The minimal amount of problems. And if you've got these pickles tightly packed, that should be the right amount of water. I just boiled this, so that water came up to the neck, but I wanted about halfway up the neck. Just like that. Let me show you. Halfway up the neck, like that. Okay, so the very top of the jar, the water is about 1 centimeter below the actual top. Or if you're American, 3/8 inch, okay? Okay, so that's it. Now I'm just going to put a jar on, or a lid on. You could use one of these, like a metal lid, but I find they tend to rust in this process. I like to use just one of these plastic lids. I tighten it on, hold my fingers out, my thumb and my middle finger, and I tighten it as tight as I can just using those 2 fingers. I find that snug enough to keep things out, but you know, as this starts to ferment, it's going to ferment for a week on my counter here. As it starts to ferment, there's going to be pressure building up in here. I find that amount of tightness is enough to allow the air to get out, the bad air to get out, but not the good air to get in. So it's just, it behaves like a valve, even though it isn't a valve. And I've messed around with products like this, these sorts of things where you got this little valve here and you screw this thing on. I like this better. I find this works a lot better. It's cleaner, it's just got less problems. The problem with these things is that inside this little hole, you get all kinds of nasty stuff going on in there. I just don't find this as a good, in principle it seems like a great idea, but in practicality, this simple plastic lid works better. So that's what I do. This is going to sit on the counter for a week, and then I'm going to put it in the fridge, or put it in a cold room, or if it was cold enough in my garage, put it on the floor of my garage. Basically, after a week of being at room temperature, this needs to be at somewhere between refrigerator temperature, which is 5 Celsius. Sorry, if you're Imperial, you can translate that, just Google it. Somewhere between 5 and 10 Celsius, it'll store just fine. Not indefinitely, but for, 6 months, give or take sort of thing. What I tend to do with these after they've been on my counter for a week is I've got a very rudimentary root cellar in the backyard, and I just stick them underground, and they seem to work out just fine like that. So anyway, I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. And until next time, get out there, get at it. Try using the sacrifickle method. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.